Hi, this is Sue Greenwell with the Empowered Light Holistic Expo. The expo is May 1st through 3rd, 2020 in Oaks, Pennsylvania at the Greater Philadelphia Expo Center. I'm here today with Michelle Rothwell, and she'll be speaking on Saturday at 2:30. Hey, Michelle, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Sue. And yourself?
Pretty good. It's a beautiful spring day right now. We're in our quarantine lockdown, so it just allows me to get a lot of paperwork done, things that I normally wouldn't get done, I guess.
Sure.
How about you?
It's a perfect time to be a Zoomer.
It is, and it was my idea before everybody else started using it, by the way. Just joking. Michelle's going to be talking Saturday, May 2nd at 2:30 in the Evolve Room, and her topic is how neuroscience validates the use of mystical practices, which are like yoga, meditation, and all of that, to enhance your creativity. Can you kind of explain that a little bit, Michelle, and explain what the person that attends that talk might learn in the talk?
Well, sure. So the folks who will be attending this conference don't need to be convinced of the power of mindfulness.
Right.
But what's intriguing is that scientists have come to the same conclusion that the yogi masters figured out thousands of years ago, that there is something about the neurological processes of the way the body functions that mindfulness really enhances. And so my work is really specifically interested in creativity as it relates to spiritual, brain chemistry.
Right.
But I found the science to be so interesting and beneficial to understand.
Right. And so what practices specifically would you say fall into that mystical category?
So yoga for sure, and especially, Hindu-based traditional yoga that includes meditation, mudras, breathing, all of that. But pretty much anything. I mean, my spiritual teachers have all told me that all practices lead to the same thing, basically, that it's better to take one practice and follow it really deeply than to, worry about sampling everything. So I pretty much found a couple of paths that really work well for me, and one of them is creativity, and the other is the yoga practice. But for a number of years, I also did Native American drumming. I guess you could call that drumming consciousness work, which with my husband Ed Rothwell, and it's been a fantastic journey.
Well, tell me a little bit about your background. How did you get started doing what you're doing now?
Well, I guess I was always an artist, so that was one thing. And then I think I was always spiritual. That was another thing. But I never quite fit in anywhere as a result of it. My spiritual curiosity, I didn't get teachers till I was older. So I was kind of like a strange child, as you could say. I would have all these really interesting experiences, and I didn't know what to do with them.
Well, you fit right in.
Yeah, so just crazy things would happen. Yeah. So when I got older, I couldn't avoid it anymore. I guess I could say that was the thing that happened to me. It wouldn't let me rest, so I had to pursue it. And so I had to pursue both creativity and spirituality. And I just spent a number of years wondering how to integrate them, because in a lot of ways, creativity is something that we do with our mind and our bodies, and we think a lot about our heart and our soul, but we don't actually engage our heart and our soul in creative practice. And as a college professor for 20 years, I found that heart and soul were something we talked about theoretically, but it wasn't really something we were doing in the classroom.
Right. I think really, though, the thing that makes a good artist is they do have the technical aptitude. They may know how to paint or draw, whatever their medium is, or use the clay. But it's when they get into that creative zone, they kind of go out of their body in a way and let spirit take over, that they're most effective. And that sounds kind of like what your talk is all about. Like, in my mind, a mystical practice could be taking a walk and listening to the birds, and, you could walk a labyrinth, you could walk down your street. It doesn't need to be, going up and sitting on a mountain in Tibet and meditating with monks, it can be just things in our everyday life that make us feel good, kind of take us out of our mind a little bit. Don't you think?
Oh, I totally
Yeah.
agree. I think we're all, modern monks living in everyday monasteries, in our daily lives. And it's advanced practice to be able to be spiritually grounded in this world that we're living in. So I feel like I get to practice advanced skills to be a part of the society we live in. And what a great opportunity and challenge, for that.
It is a challenge. I mean, when you take into account social media and all the news and the instantaneous everything on demand, and then just the speed at our life that we live our life, it's insane, and it's hard to maintain that spiritual practice without consciously setting time aside every day to do something.
Sure.
And like
I'd like to add one
yeah,
thing. So when you were talking about the artist, sort of accessing these spiritual dimensions and, downloading and bringing it in, there's kind of a paradox I've been working on. So while I'm thinking about holistic creativity or creativity as a holistic practice, engaging the heart, the soul, the mind, and the body, um, I found that as seek to integrate them, I'm also at the same time separating them. And so it's a little bit of a paradox, and I'll try to explain it briefly. So um, I find that when I'm working on my art, I want to be actually as cognitive and mundane as possible. I really want to use my brain and be really focused and skillful, but I don't want the mindfulness part to disappear. And I don't want to just do mindfulness over here and creativity over here, but there's a sort of a separation of layers. So I'm less trying to be spiritual in my art, and I'm more about being a spiritual person who's making art. I don't know if that makes any sense
it
whatsoever.
totally does. Totally does. Yeah. So, so it is our kind of a lifestyle being spiritual. It's not just a thing you do for an hour a day, right? It is a lifestyle. And whatever you bring that energy into takes on the energy of it. So it could be your artwork, it could be a class that you teach. The people that are working with in some fashion will receive that, creative energy,
Mhm.
whatever it might be, healing energy or whatever. And of course, we hope that it ripples out and around. And it could be, again, being spiritual, you don't have to sit, in the lotus position for 20 hours a day. It can be meditating and just, whatever your thing is. It can be tai chi, qi gong, yoga, of course, is my favorite, walking, swimming, artwork. It doesn't really matter. It just takes you kind of out of that analytical mind, with the social media always in the forefront.
My favorite practice is in the line at the grocery store.
Yeah.
Really like, or driving, like how to
Exactly.
stay in that
Yeah.
state of openness and presence without judgment, and to be a really good person
Yeah.
in that moment. Like to me, those are the biggest challenges.
Yeah.
And it plays out in being an artist as well, because, being an artist is actually really difficult. It pushes you to all your limits. And so I find having a spiritual practice underneath me or embedded in me or embodied within me connects and really empowers my work a lot.
Right. Well, I would think too, being an artist, you're never done. It's never complete. There's always that self-doubt. Did I finish it? Is there something more I should add? You know what I mean? There's always that, mental worry about it, like, or you'll look at something you did a year ago and you'll say, oh, I should have done this or that. But that's part of the process, right? It's like there's a certain point where you need to let go and move on to the next thing that you're doing, whether it be writing, music, painting, whatever it might be. There's, there's that, did we finish it, the mental part, but let's go on and create the next piece, whatever is exciting.
Well, sure. And that's where spiritual practice particularly comes into practice. So you cultivate cognitive capabilities as an artist, and there's lots of techniques that I do in my work for improving cognitive performance, both in creative and critical thinking. But you also want to develop a listening to that still inner voice inside of yourself. And
Yeah.
so sometimes I can just say, well, what part of me is asking the question? Is it the mind who's always curious and wants to know, and
Yeah.
maybe we could do this and maybe we could do that, and your mind just goes chatter, chatter, and I don't know about you, but I have a whole committee up there that, gets involved, that gets involved in all these decisions. And so I have to ask myself, who's listening, who's asking the
Yeah.
question,
Yeah.
is this done or not, and
Yeah.
of course, there is no right or wrong, really. That's just a question of what you
Sure.
choose to do. So whatever you choose to do, something will happen.
Yeah, it's exciting, isn't it? So, and we can all agree that creativity is a good thing from many aspects. It keeps your brain active and alive, and you're like you have a younger what would you call it? Personality, younger brain. You're able to function better throughout your life, and that's what I think we all want, right?
Scientists call that plasticity and elasticity.
Yeah.
So they're actual qualities, and creativity is a great way to keep your mind changeable and fluid and developing. Because scientists have
Right.
discovered that the brain can be changed both in form and structure, which is kind of interesting.
That is great. Well, is there anything else you'd like to add? So we've kind of talked about your background and what people will learn during your talk. And what will you be doing at the expo throughout the weekend?
Well, I wrote a book that I published this past August, which is a self-guided course of how to go through holistic creativity. So it's a way for you to engage spiritual and practical principles for your creativity. And so it'll help you bridge those two components together for yourself
Right,
and
right.
become more integrated as a creative person. And so I'll be talking about my book, and also I do creative attunements, which are sort of like what you would think of as a traditional energy treatment. So Reiki, or whatever you want to call it, I call it, the kind that works or doesn't work. And it's just a gift that I have that I've been developing. And so it's part that, and then it's part really practical. So you would get an assessment of where you are
Oh, nice.
creatively,
Yeah.
and we would do an attunement, and you'd have sort of like an action plan that you could take away with you. So I'll be
Okay.
talking to people about those kind of services as well.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So again, Michelle's talking Saturday, May 2nd at 2:30 in the Evolve Room. And you can meet her in person, talk with her, look at her book, ask questions, and get an attunement. Anything else, Michelle?
No, that's about all, Sue. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Well, thank you. It's so great to meet you, and I look forward to talking to you in person in May.
Okay, sounds wonderful.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.